I'm going to start off this video by showing you some clips of some really bad Japanese swordsmen. Now that we've seen the bad swordsmen, let's take a look at some good swordsmen for comparison. Oh, wait a moment. Those were the same characters that were already established to be bad swordsmen. Well, this doesn't make any sense. Oh, wait. I think I got it. One video was written by M.A. Larson while the other was written by Meriwether Williams, wasn't it? Is any of this ringing a bell with anyone out there? Inconsistent or incomplete characterization is a critique that many analysts pass out like it's discount peppermint canes after Christmas. And while it's understandable sometimes, I do believe it gets used way more often than it should. And although there are many cases of this accusation, for this video, I'll be able to demonstrate all of my across-the-board points by focusing mostly on examples set by Spike, Fluttershy, and King Sombra. It's extremely important that we take a careful approach while analyzing and ask the right questions not only of the story, but of ourselves as well. What sort of archetype are we working with? Is the character having a substantially developmental moment? Does the characterization believably accomplish its goal? These factors, and possibly more, must be considered individually and altogether at the same time, and although it's one of the first things that writers learn, it's also one of the most complex skills a writer can have, as each of these factors takes a great deal of care and time to develop and string together. The key is to balance the limitations of a character's archetype with the unpredictability that human nature can sometimes have, while maintaining a believable end result. Certain types of characters are expected to act in certain types of ways. These archetypes are how a writer might determine what sort of conflicts a character will face, how they will react, and how they will overcome. Archetypes serve well as a character's foundation, not the character's sole trait. Otherwise, the character stagnates and becomes impossible to develop in the best circumstances, and in the worst case scenario, the character becomes unrelatable. Most people have several aspects to their personalities, some of which only come out under very specific circumstances. And in addition, most people have patterns to if, when, and how they change depending on their personality and the situations that they're presented with. So the next trick becomes to figure out if it's truly out of character when someone breaks their archetype. To demonstrate this, I'll divide myself into 3 characters. The writer is reserved and compassionate. He loves learning, telling stories, and helping others. Most of his knowledge comes from experience, and his understanding comes from a higher power. The sports coach is brutally honest and confrontational. He constantly seeks challenges and harshly projects a desire for strength onto those around him. The film director is confident and expressive. He has an odd sense of humor and loves performance art. He will exhaust all of his resources attempting to bring his ideas to life. So with that in mind, which of these archetypes is the real Brawny buck? All different people will know different aspects of my character within whatever context I happen to be around them. But what happens when one of these situations shifts, causing a different part of my character to come to the surface? What happens when the different aspects overlap into each other? Or can I be only one of these characters all of the time in order to be a good character myself? Tommy Oliver once said that Spike's characterization shifts drastically at the plot's convenience. However, I believe that patterns will emerge if we apply the same concept that I just demonstrated on myself. Spike's primary purpose is being Twilight's assistant, and while this upbringing has brought out his helpful nature, as demonstrated at several points and highlighted the best in Lesson 0, he is still a child in every sense of the word. Thus, he is prone to the types of shortcomings that we often see from him, as demonstrated best in Equestria games. In addition, Spike's desire to be helpful and included creates a duality within his character, meaning that this trait is both his greatest strength and greatest weakness. When the situation is truly important, Spike becomes focused in a way that allows him to rise to the occasion, examples being Crystal Empire or Power Ponies. But when his sense of duty is fueled by something selfish or unfocused, or once he's taken out of his element and put somewhere else, say for example Sweet Apple Acres, then we end up with things like Owl's Well That Ends Well, Spike at Your Service, or just for sidekicks. Beyond this, as I demonstrated with the samurais at the beginning of this video, everyone is susceptible to making these mistakes. even in what they do best and regardless of how good they are. There is always room for growth, and these types of mistakes is what growth looks like. This could be used to possibly explain moments where Rainbow Dash or Rarity seem to lose sight of their loyalty or generosity respectively. And I believe that similar methods of analysis can be applied to almost every other alleged character inconsistency within the Friendship is Magic franchise. Not only do some lessons take multiple tries to truly sink in, but other conflicts being similar does not mean that they're the same. Nor will similar conflicts always have the same solution. This is the most common criticism of Fluttershy's character, that she repeats the same problems, causing her strength and meekness to fluctuate between her episodes. What I believe we're seeing here is not a group of writers who all have different interpretations of Fluttershy. I am confident that this is instead a very gradual development, taking its baby steps with a character who needs them. In putting your hoof down, Fluttershy learned how to stand up for herself to not be bullied. But that doesn't mean that there won't be lingering childhood trauma that would cause a persistent fear of being judged by peers or being a part of a large crowd, which is what we saw Fluttershy overcome in Hurricane Fluttershy. Although a closer comparison would be Hurricane Fluttershy and Philly Vanilli, they're still not the same. Hurricane Fluttershy was about overcoming social anxiety to help her friends. Philly Vanilli was about taking the next step, which is starting towards overcoming stage fright to help herself. We must distinguish the differences between these scenarios in order to understand why they play out differently. Fluttershy's challenges are all rooted in her shyness, yes, but they end up going beyond that to become what a shy person can expect to encounter at different stages of progress. Many are quick to pin inconsistencies on different writers having different interpretations of the characters. I won't refute this possibility, and there are certainly patterns among the writers with how the characters act and the topics covered within their episodes. However, I believe that this is less of differing interpretations of characters and more so the tackling of the aforementioned various aspects of each character. This fits well with what I said earlier about people exhibiting different personality traits within different situations. Many writers draw character inspiration from people within their own lives. Being close to someone who can represent your character helps answer the important characterization questions that I mentioned earlier. This brings relatability to the characterization and allows for a number of believable paths of action for the character based on the writer's various real-life experiences with the archetype. This can be applied to other things as well. An example being A Friend Indeed showing Ponyville as a friendly place through the eyes of Pinkie Pie, but then the following episode, Putting Your Hoof Down, shows Ponyville as a cruel place through the eyes of Fluttershy. Is this an inconsistency? Or does Pinkie's nature attract cheeriness, while Fluttershy's nature attracts those who would use her as a doormat? In conversation, I've found that many bronies are unlikely to notice these patterns without having somehow experienced something similar. This might be why it's easy for them to claim it's an inconsistency. But what do we do for characters like King Sombra, who, according to a fair portion of the fandom, have no characterization, or at least have very little known about them from a lack of screen time? For this, we apply the concept of mise-en-scène, the method of conveying a theme through what is shown. Celestia showed that the Crystal Empire reflects its state across Equestria, thus delivering the stakes of Sombra's return. His cunning was shown in the various traps and obstacles that he left behind. He demonstrated a very common historical tyranny by removing the Crystal Pony's means of self-defense and through his use of psychological warfare. And in waiting outside of the Empire, he was an ever-present threat that loomed over the horizon. Next, imagine the horror of fighting an immaterial force that can physically harm you without you being able to fight back in any way. Now, imagine your ever-present fears coming to the forefront of your mind, causing you to doubt, lose hope, lose motivation, and suffer. It corrupts your heart and subsequently the world around you, unless something comes to help you work through that fear, banish the fear, and protect you from it. Without reading any deeper than what was merely presented in the episode, King Sombra represents depression itself. Are there still people who think King Sombra didn't have any characterization? Because I believe that I've just counted 5 levels of it. All of this is not to say that there aren't character inconsistencies within the franchise. For example, I have trouble believing that Pinkie's friends would have eaten the cakes contest entry in Mystery on the Friendship Express. I have trouble believing the speed of Fluttershy's emotional transitions in some of the comics Twilight's motivations in The Good, the Bad, and the Ponies, as well as the princess's situation and interactions at the end of Revenge of the Everfree. However, I do believe that there are a lot less of these issues than most Brony reviewers make it out to be. Recently, Looney Turtle made a video that uses the methods I mentioned earlier to explain how Pinkie Pie acted quote-unquote out of character in the Philly Vanilli episode. I would like to see more reviewers ask the right questions before labeling something out of character. But perhaps I'm wrong in some or all of this. So, as always, let me know if you think that I'm wrong or have missed anything so that we may discuss it further. If you have any thoughts on this video or would like to hear something discussed, you can leave a comment below or drop comments, questions, topic suggestions, and review suggestions by following BrawnyBuck on Tumblr or sending an email to bronydebates@yahoo.com. Be sure to check out Irish John's channel for a variety of cool videos and funny super shorts. And be sure to check out Corpulent Brony's channel for some interesting My Little Pony videos and analysis. Also, feel free to check out my Patreon to see how you can support my channel and what you'll get in return. Big thanks to all of those supporting me already. Have a great day, and I look forward to hearing from all of you soon.